One of the things I absolutely cherish is going into a video game without any preconceived knowledge of what I'm about to experience. And to be fair, a lot of my favorite video games over the years have actually stemmed from these type of experiences. Just to name a few, Binary Domain, Bayonetta, there's Nier Automata, and then Castlevania Lords of Shadow. And those are just a handful of games that come to mind, that really made an impact on me and ended up being some of my favorite experiences of the year in games that I've been huge fans of. And it's interesting because when these games came out, I virtually heard nothing about them. I didn't really have any idea what to expect. And I sort of went into it with this sort of open mind of just saying, all right, I'm about to play something. I absolutely have no idea what I'm about to play. And it's so awesome when you experience something like that, and then it turns out to be this fantastic, game that really makes a incredible impression on you, and you just one that you remember for years to come. And it sort of brings me to this way of trying to not manipulate these type of experiences, but sort of curbing your expectations. For example, like for me, I don't really watch game trailers anymore. I used to be the type of guy that would watch new game trailers as soon as they come out, but over the course of the years, I don't know if it's just a fact of me getting busy in my life or whatnot, but I tend not to watch a lot of game trailers. It's only a handful of games that I'm really intrigued by, something that will that the trailers that I heard were really fantastic, or games that I'm just really looking forward to that I'll check out these trailers for. But mostly on a day-to-day basis, when there's a new trailer that drops for a video game, I basically ignore it, even though it is something I may or may not be interested in. And I make a list of games before the year starts, basically, of experiences that I want to play, and I'll take a look at some trailers as they come out, depending on the games themselves. But mostly I just look at a release list, and I sort of create this list from those other lists. And if it's a franchise that I am familiar with, of course I'll go ahead and give it a shot. But if it's a new sort of IP or some new franchise that's getting a redux, or some another chance perhaps, basically I'll try to look up maybe gameplay of the previous entry in the series, or just sort of look up what type of game it is and what to expect. And then, okay, that sounds like something I'm interested in playing, or something that I've had experience playing before, then I'll give it a shot. But sort of throughout the year, as time goes on, when new trailers drop for these games, I don't really partake in watching them. And again, it's only a handful of experiences that I'm really super excited for. So for example, upcoming in 2020, I'm really looking forward to really just 2 or 3 games, to be completely honest with you, that I'm sort of I really want to play those. And those are Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, and then Cyberpunk 2077, and probably The Last of Us Part 2 as well. And those are games that I watched the trailers as they came out. They're ones that I'm very much looking forward to, and I'm really excited to play next year. But I really do try to make this effort to sort of step away from the online excitement and stuff that surrounds these games, because I don't want hype sort of influencing my opinions and really curbing my expectations into something that may or may not be favorable to the experience. And so with movies, I'm even worse. With movies, I watch 0 trailers for films whatsoever. And really, you guys know that I tend to buy my movies, right? I'm sort of collecting and have amassed. I already have over 100 movies, by the way, on 4K Blu-ray. And so ever since I got the Xbox One S and then the X, I've sort of wanted to collect and get my 4K Blu-ray collection going very early on in the format, and I've done just that. So basically what I do is every Black Friday I go out and I buy a bunch of movies. We're talking probably around 2 dozen. At least this past Black Friday, it was around 2 dozen movies I purchased that were $7.99 or $10.99 a pop. And these are older movies. They're not terribly recent. There's some movies I got for very cheap, for example, the Spider-Man Far From Home that released earlier this year. But a lot of the movies I tend to watch at home, because the in-home experience has just become so freaking good. You're not really missing out on anything, And whenever I do go to the movies, I'm making sure, okay, this is something that I really want to see, or forward. This is something that I'm really excited for. For example, I've only been to the movies once this year, and that was to see John Wick 3. And I'm going to the movies with my dad to go see the new Star Wars film. But that besides that, those are the only. Okay, well, I take that back. I did go to the movies with one of my good friends, Dean. Back when he visited, was it a week ago or something like that? We went and saw Ford versus Ferrari, right? But that was a matter of a situation. That was just something that we decided to do. But usually, when everything's going normal and I'm not visiting friends or anything like that, I'm usually only go to the movies maybe once or twice a year. And if I am going to the movies, I'm going to see something I'm really interested in seeing. I'm really excited to see. And I always pay for the upgraded format. I will only go to the movies if I'm going to see it in Dolby Cinema. That to me is a jump in quality and sound from what I can get currently with my in-home setup. I'm gonna get 4K, dual 4K laser projectors with HDR in the movie theaters, and on top of that, Dolby Atmos surround sound, right? So when it comes to those type of movies, especially those big action movies, I remember when I saw John Wick, like they put the subwoofers behind the seats in Dolby Cinema, right? So every single time that shootout scene happened and there were shotguns, my chair was vibrating. It was so freaking awesome, and I remember probably the best movie theater experience I've ever been to, and really it was the film that revitalized my faith in movies. And subsequently it was the first Dolby Cinema film I've ever seen in theaters. That was Blade Runner 2049, and I still think back to it this day of how incredible that movie theater experience was. And I'm so scared, even though I bought the steelbook of that film on release, I'm literally so scared to watch it again because I don't know if that experience at home will live up. And so it's like I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh no, when I watch this film at home, after experiencing that in the theater, I want to make sure I have literally the best TV and I literally have Dolby Atmos surround sound at home. And all that stuff is like, okay, you'll eventually get there, right? We'll eventually have, 4K micro LED TVs or OLED TVs. I don't have an OLED right now. I have a Samsung QLED, right? But they're talking about this new technology called micro LED, which is basically going to be OLED without the negatives of OLED, like burn in and the automatic brightness adjustment and all that shit. It's supposed to be just a much better format, but that's years off. And Dolby Atmos at the moment, maybe when I get my own place, that's something I wanted to invest in, but I want to make sure I have like great speakers and good surround sound separation and an actual native surround sound setup instead of just the surround sound bar that I'm using right now, And so the experience really matters to me. And when it comes to films, I feel like because most of the time they're very, they're sort of one-off experiences. Not that you're not going to watch them again, but that, your first experience with the movie will rarely change. And so when I experience a movie, I want to go into it not really knowing what's coming out. And a lot of these trailers actually reveal a lot of the plot points of the film, which to me is like it takes the fun out of the movie. Part of the fun is the mystery, the investigation, and going there and not understanding what's happening or knowing what's happening and being on the edge of your seat trying to find out what's going to happen. And I feel like a lot of that gets lost in these trailers for both games and films alike. Everyone's trying to convey this grand sense of story, like, oh gosh, we're gonna have this incredibly epic adventure, right? And they're all trying to sell you on it, but coincidentally, at the same time, what they end up doing is sort of destroying their plot. And games aren't guilty at this as much as films, because games are longer experiences and you really have to play the game to really experience it, right? But with films, you're sitting there for on average 2 hours or so, and you're sitting down to experience something. And part of what makes that so great is just not knowing what's gonna come forward. And again, a lot of my favorite movies, just like a lot of my favorite games, have stemmed from films I knew nothing about. Again, two films that come to mind to me are Gravity and Arrival, right? Gravity to me, and I know people have polarizing thoughts on it, right? But Gravity to me is one of the best pieces of cinema in the modern age, in my opinion. And it's a terrific film with great acting. And I remember where I didn't know anything about this film. I never saw a trailer, and I was with my family, and they're like, "Oh, let's go see it," right? So I was like, okay, fine. I'll go to the movies. I'll get some popcorn. I'll just chill. And I sat down at that movie theater, right? And I was watching Gravity, and I was just, I mean, I was immersed from start to finish. And it has one of the best soundtracks in history, in my opinion. It's actually my favorite soundtrack ever, is the soundtrack for Gravity, because it has to serve two purposes. It's space, right? So there's no sound. So not only does it have to create a sense of atmosphere, it also has to sort of create the sound effects for the film. And if you ever listen to like the Gravity soundtrack, it's one of the most unique pieces of sound design that I've ever experienced, before, and it's one that I still listen to this day. It's an absolutely incredible piece of audio. And then Arrival as well. That was a film I went and saw with Jacob, and I remember he wanted to see it. It was his idea, and I was like, I don't know, I don't really, I don't know what this movie is, but I said, you know what, fine, I'll give it a chance, and we went and saw that movie, and again, I was blown away. And I remember at the very end of that film, like I was like literally in tears, because when you really understand the subject matter, and I know a lot of people tend to try to hold back their emotions in terms of empathy, right? But when you really connect with something on that emotional level, it just makes it so much more impactful. And it's such a it overall makes the whole experience much more complete, And I remember the very end of that film, and I was like, I literally was shedding tears, in that movie theater. And it's still, again, it's a film that I love and cherish to this day. And of course I own it on 4K as well. I'm really hoping they put Gravity on 4K. I would love to watch that movie in 4K. But, again, a lot of these films and games that I played came from no preconceived idea or notion of what this was about. And I encourage a lot of you who still sort of, really into games. I know that, we're all fans of games and we want to celebrate it. And so we're all excited when we see something new that comes out and we want to, see what it's about. But I really encourage you to try and make an effort to play something that you literally have no idea what it even is, or watch a film that you have no idea what it's about, and let me know what you think. Sometimes these can become some of the best experiences in your life, and some of these films can mean so much to you and make such an impact on you that they become an important part of who you are in many cases. I think back on the first Star Wars film when that came out. No one knew what that was going to be like, and it's amazing how much the franchise has sort of matured, and lived on through all these years, and whether or not you agree with what Disney's doing, with the franchise, regardless, it's something that means a lot to many people out there. And I imagine, people going to the movie theater and they're just like, yeah, let's go see this. I have no idea what this is about. And then it impacting them that much. That must have been such a powerful experience. And so, stuff like that, a lot of this, I always say, you only get your first experience once. Regardless of how much you love something or cherish something, that first time experience, right? The first time of you ever playing something, the first time of you ever watching something, you will never, ever, ever, ever get that back. And you can try to replicate it, and yes, you will change as a person as time grows on, but again, you'll never have that first time experience once you've already spent that. And that's why it's so important to me, that I experience these games and movies the right way, and the way that I really want to experience them, and that I don't sort of go in and get the plot gets to me before I even know what it's even about. And so I go in and it's like, great, this isn't really exciting because I'm already anticipating things happening, So I want to see how many of you guys sort of do this, in this day and age. And I think there might be a divide of people. You know, when I was younger, especially, I definitely wanted to sort of be involved and watch everything. And I was sort of just like always on YouTube and I'm always looking up things for media, right? But as I got older, it's sort of like, okay, I'm busy. And that might be a result of me actually not watching these trailers. It's just me having a busy life, right? But I also feel that for me, you know, it's also done purposefully, and it's done with a sense of respect for what I'm about to experience, and also for my first time experience and how valuable that is to me and what it means. So I look forward to hearing what your responses are. Thank you all so much for watching and supporting. Quick little update here. Next week I am going to the Game Awards 2019. I do plan to record a little bit. I don't know how long the video will be, but it'll probably be something like, you know, my adventures at E3 that I do every single year. I'll do it with the Game Awards. I'll show you guys basically what we're going around doing, and it should be a good time. All right, so look forward to that, and you guys have a fantastic rest of your week. Keep positive and enjoy.